Good thing this is a musical podcast. You hear music. I hear music.
Where'd you come from? God.
Well, welcome everyone to Three Guys, One Music. This is Jamie. I'm here with Mike and Grant as always. Welcome
Hello.
everyone.
Welcome.
Happy New Year to everybody.
Almost. We're almost there, right?
Don't tell me.
Well, when it posts, it's going to be Happy New Year already.
Well, then, Happy New Year,
I
everyone.
recorded this at 11:59.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Where's the alcohol? Or the old lang syne. We're going to talk today with an old friend, a guy named Tim Fogarty. He's a working musician, and just want to try to get a perspective on someone who's kind of just hustling, making a living, doing what he loves. He teaches, plays gigs, promotes gigs, and is just kind of active in the local scene. And we thought that would be an interesting perspective to get from him. And we'll share his perspective. And he's coming up in a bit. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
All right, good. Well, getting over a little bit of the flu, I think, but I'm on the mend.
Well, that's good.
So,
Grant, how you doing?
I survived another Christmas.
Survived the holidays. That's important.
That much fun?
It's always important to make it to the other end.
It's yes.
Okay.
I shall say no more in case someone sees this.
Okay.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about what we've been listening to, and I will go first. I've been listening to a lot of Pat Metheny lately.
Who's Pat Metheny?
I have and listening to a lot of Jaco Pastorius, just those guys were intertwined early in the career. I watched the Jaco movie last night that came out, about 10 years ago. It's a good documentary, I think. But I've been a fan of his for a long time. But Pat Metheny, his style, I've kind of grown into it. It's he's got a particular way of playing that's very happy to my ears compared to a lot of other jazzers. And he doesn't, I don't know, there's something uplifting about his style that I think is interesting versus like John Scofield or something. It's a little darker, plays outside more. I think I kind of prefer Metheny's more diatonic sound.
Yeah.
And his catalog from 75 to 80, I'm particularly a big fan of. And on the flip side of that, I've been listening to a lot of the Hives. Just the super punk rock edge. I just love the energy of that band ever since I've been familiar with them. And it's, to me, a lot of it is about guitar tones and, just how they form songs. And finally, I've been listening to some Supremes, greatest hits, Motown, and just really been paying attention to song construction. And not so much about the performances, but listening to production and listening to, how those songs were put together. And I guess that was probably Holland Holland, maybe, a lot of those songs they put out back then. But big fan of Motown, maybe my favorite genre. I've said this before. Love it. Which surprised a lot of people, but I do love it very much.
Yeah,
But
that's cool.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned the Supremes. I pulled my record collection out today and straightened it up. It was kind of messy by my standards, but I was you forget what you have over there, and pulled out the Supremes and the Fifth Dimension, and I thought I'm going to put that on my list. That's what I'll be talking about next podcast, is those two groups. But it's funny you said you had to let Pat Metheny grow on you.
Yeah,
because as a bass player, you'll hear Jaco's name right from the start. Everybody's talking about Jaco. It doesn't take long to be introduced to it. And I was not a fan right off the bat. I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool, but I don't know. It took me years to really appreciate Jaco's playing. So I get where you're coming from. And as far as 75 to 80, that catalog, that era for Pat Metheny, I'm right on board. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
But recently I woke up one day this week with Machine Gun by the Commodores in my head. So I had to delve into their catalog and listen to their early albums up until like 80 something.
Yeah.
We had talked about Jim Gilmore of Saga. So I went through their catalog. I had to work last Saturday. So I went through their catalog while I was there alone. That was a lot of fun. And Mars Volta on the way home. That's about all I've listened to in the past week.
Mars Volta is one of your go-tos, you said, right?
Oh yeah. Can't find anything else to play. You put that on.
Nice. All right. How about you, Grant?
It's funny you mentioned Jocko because I've listened to some Weather Report.
Oh man, I love it. What's your favorite Weather Report record offhand? Heavy Weather. I like Black Market, even though he's only on part of that. Alfonso's on most of it, I think, or at least half of it. Black Market, I think, has got my two favorite songs, Rondu and Cannonball. Love those songs.
Those two are definitely up there for that. But yeah, I came because I've been listening to a lot of jazz and drummers specifically. I've been going through because I have when you think about music, like you said, Matheny has a more uplifting way of playing.
Yeah.
A lot of jazz drummers, there's a lot of busy drummers. Yeah. I mean, jazz drumming is busy inherently because you're filling space, you're creating your own rhythms against what's being played, et cetera, et cetera. But sometimes a real busy jazz drummer is a turnoff to the music.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what are you doing over there? I knew you got to keep time, and time is kept in a different way, obviously, than just straight time. It's rock and roll and some other genres. But sometimes it's too chaotic, It's almost like it's like if a bass player is trying to solo during the horn part, during the melody or something, and it's not his time. Sorry to call it a bass player.
A bass solo.
But
what is that?
It's a bit distracting.
You mean like if I were to say, hey, let's talk about the weather right now while you're in the middle of that? You mean that kind of distraction?
Yeah. It's kind of like it's pulling away from whatever we're talking about. Because as a drummer, your ear is, or whatever your instrument is, you're listening to the piece of music, but you're listening for your instrument a little bit more.
Right.
It's sometimes you have to consciously say, stop listening to the ride cymbal and listen to the song, or stop listening to the guitar tone and listen to the song,
Okay.
And they're great drummers, but like sometimes it's just like, okay, what are you doing? It's not fitting the music. Like we always talked about fitting the music,
right?
And some people say, oh, this is their greatest performance. I was like, is it though? It's his greatest show off performance. Yeah.
Right.
But is it the greatest? Miles was he would give you a look, if you're playing something you're not supposed to be playing at a certain time. I think he was very aware of what everyone was playing, and not just, there's some band leaders that whatever goes, you play what you want as long as you know where the one is and you can get out of it. We're all good, And there's a time, and that's almost to me like jazz heavy metal. It's like it's abrasive.
Jazz heavy metal.
It's a lot going on, and as opposed to jazz yacht rock. I'm going to use a term I hate because we've been talking about it.
Oh my goodness.
And there's time and place for both. It's just when one filters over into the other. Anyway, I've just been listening to a lot of jazz drumming, deciding on none, just it's personal opinion, but like, that would have been greater if he'd have played less.
Yeah.
How many times do we say that sometimes,
Sometimes you just want to groove Charlie Watts style.
Yeah.
I can't get cerebral about the analyzed drumming like you guys can. I just know what feels good to me and what I like, what I don't. As a guitar stringed instrument, I can analyze those and go, I don't really care for that. But I don't think about it in those terms with drummers. It is truly how it makes me feel. Does that, and I have been listening to a Romantic Warrior, which I had said a week or so ago that I was never a huge fan of, but I've been kind of listening to it, and there are things that I don't care for, but the production is pretty great. and I hadn't heard it in a while, and I thought,
great.
That's pretty good.
I know where he's going with it. It's pretty crappy. It's pretty.
No, it's
pretty great. Good. I was like, wow, that's funny.
It's good.
It's kind of extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It's good.
But anyway, that's my boring take on listening to jazz drummers for the week.
Well, what do you think of Peter Erskine?
Oh, one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Knows the best thing to play at almost the appropriate time. He's almost never out of pocket, shall we say,
Yeah.
And
I think he's probably one of the most well-respected.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say him, Steve Smith?
Steve Smith and
those guys are all roughly the same age. I want to say they're both born in 54. So I want to say that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're the same era. They had the same. I don't know where Peter Erskine got schooled. I know Steve Smith is a Berkeley guy. But anyway, cool stuff. Love to hear what you guys are listening to and your takes on it, as always. Well, we're going to add Tim here in just a second and get him up and running. And here we go. Hello, sir.
What's up?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Oh, just hanging out.
Okay. All right.
I say you need to reconsider. Like sometimes the people that are waiting and the guests might have been listening to something that week too.
Yeah, tell us what you've been listening to.
The Mountain Goats, actually. You guys ever heard of them?
One of my favorites.
No.
Yeah. I've been a little bit obsessed with them lately.
I'm actually not familiar with them.
Yeah, I don't believe I've heard them.
It's indie folk, I guess would be a good label for it. But it's been my newfound interest in lyrics that have led me to that kind of stuff. Mm. I spent most of my music life not caring what they said, just what they played. And over the last decade, I've actually started paying attention to what the words are.
We know someone like that. Very close.
This is so interesting. Yeah. We've had this
is Jamie like that also?
He is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I have not matured yet to get to that point.
I started hanging out with a bunch of singer-songwriters. It was almost forced upon me.
Oh, there you go.
I'm like, there's only 3 chords. There's got to be something else. And the words, that was what it was.
Yeah,
right.
That's funny.
Well, so the Mountain Goats were kind of like been the kind of like center point of what you're listening to a lot these days?
Yeah, The Cure, Fish never changes. I still listen to them constantly. Slayer's pretty much on heavy rotation. Pantera still. I never gave up my metal. I just don't play it for profit anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love the stuff that I grew up on. I still listen to that stuff in the car. My tastes are all over the map. I mean, I love Frank Sinatra as much as I love Frank Zappa. I love ABBA as much as I love America, and Iron Maiden as much as I love. I don't know what else starts with
Butterfly. Iron Butterfly.
Yeah. But yeah. I mean, we all love music. We love music, and I think that you have to have open ears. You have to have big ears, is the musical term. I've sat in classes, master classes, where they talk about listening and being open to new things. And just because you might not think you might like something, but just be open to it, and I think that's always good advice for anybody,
I agree.
Yeah. I don't get people that won't even try to listen to something different or something they've never heard. I've never gotten that because someone who's loved all types of music. Oh, have you heard this new band? No, let me go check it out.
Well, think about how many artists there are that might have 1 or 2 songs you like, but you don't like the rest of their catalog. I mean, it's not about saying, well, I just don't like that artist. It's about the song.
Mm-hmm.
It just might be something that they did that I'm like that with a handful of people. I don't like everything by them. I might just like a few things, but I really, really like those few things. So
it's about discovery too. Like Grant has accused me of fear of missing out, and that's absolutely true. What if the next band I hear is my favorite band? So if somebody suggests something, I want to listen to it. I want to check it out.
I'm really guilty of that. If you're guilty of it, I should be prosecuted. Yeah, for sure. Because I'm totally not open. I don't think about that at all. I lost that sense of mystery, unfortunately. What else great is out there? If I hear it, I love it, but I don't ever think about I've got to discover the next new thing.
Yeah.
I have a fun way to go find them. If you ever guys want to try it.
Yeah.
It's I don't know if you use Spotify or Tidal, whichever listening or streaming service you use. They've always got that section underneath was this band was either influenced by or inspired by. And then the first thing I do is I click on that list, and the first band on that list I've never heard of. I click on them, listen to the first couple songs, then I do the same thing from that band, and I just piggyback it down the line until I'm on this pile of bands I've never heard of, and that's where the Mountain Goats came from. It came out of it was a Cure connection that somehow the backwoods got to the Mountain Goats.
I think I'm ready for whenever things get so sophisticated that AI knows exactly what I like and it'll suggest things to me so I don't have to do it. That's what I'm ready for. That's what I'm ready for, because
you could put in an AI prompt like, I want to
I don't
melodic goats, and it would send you somewhere.
Yeah, I'm gonna set. This is only send me stuff that I like. Spotify. Yeah, you need to know what that is.
It tries to. I mean, it does have an algorithm.
Yeah.
Well, I don't listen to Spotify. I'm one of those. I'm in the minority. I'm the outsider here. I don't stream. I know what I want to listen to, and I've said that many times. And it's not. I don't have anything against streaming, but
Jimmy buys all his music. He rarely
buy all my music. That is true. Everything I listen to.
To be honest, that's commendable. That is commendable compared to what most of us do.
Partly is to support the artist, but it's also I like the sound quality better. But it's definitely to support the artists.
Well, plus if you're somewhere without internet, you can still listen to music.
Well,
if you're streaming, you're screwed.
I have Spotify. I have a Spotify account. I have a Sirius, in my car, but I never listen to them. Almost never. And when I listen to Sirius, I've said this to Grant, I listen to the news on Sirius. I don't ever listen to music. So I'm not the perfect person to ask about that, but I get it. I understand why people do it. And the young people, the real young people, they're never going to buy music. They're never going to buy music again. I hate to even say that, but I just can't imagine them knowing they've got 10 million or however many millions of songs available to them to listen to whenever they want, and them to say, well, I think I'll spend money on that. Why would they do that?
They're buying it for a different reason. It's a different reason, but they are buying it. They're buying cassettes. Believe it or not, cassettes are making a comeback.
Let's talk about this. I want you to give me your perspective on things because you're actively in the music scene. So let's talk a little bit. Let's talk about how you got started. We've known each other for, God, I want to say close to 30 years. I
started working at Smith Whitley in '95, so that's when I met all you guys.
So yeah, so 29 years. Okay, so I thought it was
because Brad Hollenbeck was already working there at the time.
He had gotten back from LA.
Yeah. And I don't remember. Jerry was there. Brad and Gary Dobbins were there at the time I started.
Yeah. Well,
I replaced a girl named Missy who I never met.
Missy. I'm not sure.
Or Melissa or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure I remember. She might not have had a long tenure there. Well, we're talking about Smith Whitley Music, which was we've discussed on the previous episode with Kirby Smith. A really important,
check it out,
music store for the local scene where we grew up in North Carolina, and it was just a good hang for people, and it was it was just a great little area and place that we all were. And Tim and I was up the store, even though I didn't teach there at the time. I did teach there part of the time you were there, but not
you did a little bit,
but I was there all the time. That's just part of where I wanted to be, so that lasted until the late 90s, I would say, but so when you prior to coming to North Carolina, you grew up partly in California, correct? Is that what I remember?
I was born and raised out there. Yep.
Okay. So let's talk about the whole time
until I was here.
Okay. Well, let's talk about how you got involved with music and what are the artists that inspired you, and then we'll get into, kind of where you currently are.
I have no shame, but the first thing I recall listening to as a kid was Puff the Magic Dragon on some kids album, and that same album had a recording of Rocket Man, but it wasn't by Elton John. It was by some, kids choir. And I remember being obsessed with both Rocket Man and Puff the Magic Dragon. And then my dad got me listening to A Hard Day's Night. Somehow got into the Beach Boys and weaved around there. They had an Anne Murray album before, and that was the one thing I didn't want to hear. And then when they took me to buy my own records, it was Michael Jackson Thriller, I bought that. Herbie Hancock's Future Perfect and Billy Joel Glass Houses I bought the same day. Herbie Hancock was the
Future
song.
Shock? It's Future Shock.
Future Shock. Yeah, Future Shock.
Yeah,
That's what I meant. Yeah.
Right.
Because it had
Right.
Rocket on it, and the video was
Right.
really popular at the time. So I'm
Right.
like, I love that.
That's
I only
84.
bought Glass Houses because there was a guy on the cover that was getting ready to break a house with a rock, and I thought that was awesome. And it turned out I loved the album. I didn't know who Billy Joel was. I just thought he was looking like he was getting in trouble. And I thought that was cool.
So that would have been 84ish, maybe 10 years old.
Yeah, that was my love for music came from there. And then Van Halen put out a VHS recording called Live Without a Net. It was from
86.
Sammy Hagar's first tour.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
And I got obsessed
August
with that
86.
video.
That came out in 87. So.
New Haven, Connecticut. And that
Right.
made me go crazy. And that's when I started going, guitar for Christmas, guitar for Christmas.
Oh, wow.
I used to wear it out. And I got a guitar that Christmas. And I started taking lessons at a local music shop in California. Looking back at it, that guy only taught me the first 10 seconds of every song I wanted to learn, just like the intro. And that was it. So I went and joined my first band at like 15 or 16. And they're like, say, what songs do you know? I'm like, oh, well, I know Fade to Black. And then you play it. And that's when you start realizing there's 6 more minutes than the 30 seconds I knew. And
do you
shortly
think
after
that's
that, I
probably
ended up
what
moving here.
inspired you to be a teacher?
Yeah, very much so, I think.
Okay. Well, that's interesting.
And I just love music. Like you, much like all of us sitting here,
Yeah.
like I love music so much.
Yeah,
Obviously,
I
I'm
know
6'5" and almost 300 pounds, so everyone wanted me to play football. But I have no competitive bone in my body. I don't care about winning or losing. I just wanted to go practice guitar. That's all I wanted to do was play music, listen to music, play music with my friends, find a way
Right.
to make my Sony Walkman as loud as possible by plugging it into other speakers in the house. You name it, man.
Yeah.
I was truly obsessed.
Yeah, and the whole time we've known each other, certainly I know that we sat in the one of the studios and played many times, and just tried to
next time you're
improvise
in
some
town.
changes. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I'm hoping to get back there sometime. I don't think it's going to be soon, unfortunately, but I do hope to get back. But yeah, we'll try to get together. I'd love to come out to where we'll talk about the place that you frequent.
You guys could do a podcast from here on the stage at the shop. I don't know if you can see the microphones behind me, but I built a stage in the music store now.
Nice.
So we can rehearse on the stage. There's 2 drum sets, keyboards, full PA up here. You guys are always welcome.
Awesome.
Yeah, nice.
Cool. So once you knew that you had the fever for music, and how old were you when you came to North Carolina?
20.
Oh, was it really? Okay, so it was 94. Okay. I thought for some reason I thought you were here prior to that, but you pretty much started Smith Whitley. You kind of seeked out the local music store almost immediately within a year of being here, huh?
Yep, and they didn't need anybody at the time, so I would call Kirby every week, and he called me and said, "Hey, they wanted me on Tuesday and Thursday from 3 to 6:30." Didn't let me teach right away, but
Right.
And that's how I just got my foot in the door, and then it was like a disease; they could not get rid of me.
Now there was a guy that worked up there named Jacob for a little while. Do you remember him?
Jacob Turner. Yep.
Yeah, he
I don't know what happened to him though, but
he went to I think Appalachian State.
he did. As
he
far
was
as I
a
know,
good
he
kid.
did well.
Yeah. I remember that time. I think I was working in the Northeast when you might have started 94. And then by the time 95 rolled around, and Mike and I were playing together in 94. I don't know if you were kind of coming up to the store. Mike and I were involved in a band in 94. And then it kind of
Well, I
ended in
pretty
the
much
summer of
went from
94.
not knowing. I didn't really know any of you guys, so I went from like 0 to
Right.
60 in that sense.
Right.
I started working there, and that's how I got to meet everybody. So I didn't really have any introduction to anybody that was hanging out up there until I started actually ringing you up for strings and stuff.
Right. Okay. So when you started to teach, you were, how many students would you say you were teaching at any given time? You got up to like 50 students a week at one point, didn't you? Or something like that?
I'm still, I kind of run in that area now still.
Wow.
But yeah, I got up to 55 and I decided that was too many. So 40 is my happy zone. That's where I like to be.
Wow.
I'm comfortable there.
Wow.
Some of them I still have from the Westchester location.
You're kidding.
Wow.
Wow.
I've got a couple students I've had for 20 years.
Holy cow. Well, I bet. No, that's great. I wonder how normal that is. You know,
I don't know. I'm very capable of diverting to other subjects too. Like we talk about music more than anything, but there's definitely, you become friends with them as well. And
yeah, of course.
There's a couple of students I've even blocked out for more time in the back of my head because I know we're going to talk for 15 minutes before we do anything constructive.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, I got to give this guy a 15-minute gap so I don't rip off anyone else's time.
Right. Well, that's cool. So you kind of were teaching, and I think that whenever we started to kind of get to know each other and hang out, I know that you were really into the Grateful Dead, and you actually, I have to credit you. And I am always open to saying this. I was never someone that listened to the Grateful Dead. I would credit you as responsible as anybody for opening my mind to the greatness of the Grateful Dead. Because it wasn't something I listened to, but I want to say the Reckoning record was a record that you might have turned me on to. I don't remember, but I listened to that record a lot. And that's an acoustic record for anyone that doesn't know.
It came to me through Brad Dobbins, so he may have given it to you as well.
Maybe. I don't recall Brad turning me on to it, but it's possible. But I know that we talked about the Grateful Dead quite a bit. And that, I know that, but you definitely you opened my eyes to a lot of that type of music. And I never really have gotten into Fish like you. I know Fish is huge for you, but I never really have listened to them. It's cool. I mean, those guys are amazing musicians, but it just never really struck the chord for me, for lack of a better way to put it. But the Grateful Dead I see the awesomeness in them. And I do go on little kicks where I want to listen to the Grateful Dead, and there's certain eras that I listen to, but so thank you for that. I just wanted to say
no problem. They just got the Kennedy Center honors.
Yeah, I saw that recently. Yeah. The 3 remaining members. Yeah, that's very sad that Phil Lesh passed right before that happened, and they were going to get together, and try to see if they could make something happen for a 60th anniversary. And
if you get a chance to check out the John Mayer, if you get a chance to see the John Mayer era, it's worth it.
Oh yeah, the Dead and Company.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's definitely worth it.
Have you've seen the live show from them?
He brings a vocal sensibility to the Dead that they, in my opinion, didn't have as much before that. Not that I'm complaining. I love Jerry's voice. It had its own emotive sense to it. But John Mayer's got a crispness to his voice that none of the other Dead members really had. So he brings some vocal flair that they might not have otherwise had in their previous incarnations.
It is funny to me that, just a little sidebar here. A couple of years ago, I put together a Strat, and I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I bought an Alembic Stratoblaster, which is just called a blaster now. It used to be called a Stratoblaster. And I put that in the Strat, and I still have one in my custom shop Strat. I put one in, and it's just got this thing. And I didn't even know that that's what Jerry Garcia used back in the 70s and 80s. I didn't know that. And that's what PRS put in the Silver Sky, the desert model that he uses, or whatever it's called. The Dead Spec model is what it is, but it's got the Alembic Blaster in it. And that came out a year after I had put one in mine. And so I wasn't influenced at all by that, but it is a cool little thing. So I totally get why they like it, but it's definitely, it's something, it's expensive for how simple a circuit it is, but it's pretty cool. It does sound great. So,
they're nice sounding guitars.
Yeah. But I like John Mayer, and somebody I talked to earlier today we talk about John Mayer, and I was like, well, we haven't discussed that yet. So we'll see how Mike and Grant feel about that when we talk about this
guitar player.
No, he's fine.
He's fairly competent at playing guitar.
He's very competent. Yes.
So competent that I've argued with people over how well he can play the damn guitar.
Yeah.
People who've only heard him on the radio have no clue.
Yeah, that's true.
How he can actually play guitar.
Yeah, I know that when I was in school out in Los Angeles, the people there were, quite a bit younger than I was, and they were just enthralled and the students would mention him to the instructors, and they're like, I've heard it all before. And I was like, that's kind of how I feel about it. And I was like, he's cool. He's real cool, man. But, I mean, his style, I've heard it before. I don't think it's terribly original, but it's cool, and, but yeah, I can't say anything bad about him. He's definitely he knows how to do what he does. So
he
my hat's
does what
off to him.
was well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. So I know that, you were always, and I've always admired this about you. You've always been active in the local music scene and tried to gig and promote gigs, and you're currently doing that. And do you want to talk about the establishment that you sort of involved with, or I don't even know exactly the relationship you guys have, but
Tim is carrying the local music scene.
well, yeah, we talked a little bit about this earlier this afternoon off air, so we can elaborate on that if you want to talk about it. Just about how active you think the scene is currently.
It's changed a lot in the last, since you've been gone, the High Point, well, the fact that we can even say the word High Point's music scene is a change. There's actually more than 7 or 8 places to play in High Point now, where when you were here, there was 2 or 3, a couple like what we call like those backwoods places, made 4 or 5, but no one really wanted to play them. But now you've got Stock and Grain Center, which is right by the stadium, and they have bands. You've got Plank Street, which is where I host an open mic night every Thursday. They have bands every weekend. You have Paddle South Brewery, which regrettably is going to be closing at the end of January, but they've had live music. Nomad Wine Works in High Point has live music. Believe it or not, what used to be Triangle is now Blue Bourbon Jack's, no longer has live music. There's a bar now.
You're kidding
anymore? Wow.
Nope.
They
was tried to do
the major places to play live back in the day.
I love playing there. That was my favorite place to play because they had great stage, and great soundboard, and a great sound guy. I was like, wow.
And that's still there as far as I know, but they had an acoustic music on Sunday attempt for a few weeks, but it didn't pan out. But 1614, which used to be Chumley's and used to be, I don't know what else it's been. That place still does live music.
Yeah.
And Ziggy's, which
makes me happy to hear that the scene is good, And
everyone knows Ziggy's, but Ziggy's is now relocated to High Point as well. It works with the Cohab space, which is a multi-use facility for artists and musicians in High Point. And Jay Stevens from Ziggy's uses that now as a Ziggy's Presents location to do music. He does an outdoor summer series, and he just now has an indoor location there as well to promote shows there. And he's got the national, regional acts just like he used to come through.
Oh, okay. So the name acts, I mean, I mean, Ziggy's, for anyone who doesn't know the area, and if you're not a local, you probably wouldn't, but Ziggy's was one of the key places that I saw a lot of fantastic performances back in the 90s and the 2000s. I mean, it was a great place.
They had more regional bands. They had national bands, but they also had regional bands.
Yeah.
As well.
Oh, yeah. But they had a wonderful, such a great vibe in that place. I saw a video of the Black Crowes that played there in '98, and Chris Robinson said this kind of reminded him of his dad's patio or deck. Just kind of the way it was laid out. It was
the old Ziggy's was great with the tree out there and the seats under the tree, and then the stage over. That was.
I think that was my favorite place that I've ever seen.
They don't make anymore.
Yeah. So that's cool. So is the new Ziggy's anything like the old Ziggy's, or
not at all? It's mostly outside now.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, he's got a bigger stage. There's actually more room than there ever was, but it doesn't have that at-home backyard feel as much as, but it's still definitely an artsy place. It's got some cool art roots to it.
That is great.
And now he's got an indoor location, which I haven't been to yet. It just started like 3 or 4 weeks ago. He's got an indoor spot over there also.
Oh, okay.
And there's terrible parking for the outdoor place, so it's just like the big city. It's just like
like the big city. Yeah, you have to park either in a gravel parking lot across the street, or just hope you can find somewhere to stick your car.
I forgot all about that fun part of going to go to Ziggy's. Yeah. What was the barbecue place that was across the street from Ziggy's?
Was it Stamey's?
Stamey's?
No, it wasn't
Stamey's. No.
I can't remember what the name of it.
That's the first thing that popped in my head too.
I think I parked there at the barbecue place most of the time when I went to Ziggy's. So, yeah. I forgot all about that part of it. That was just part of the experience.
Yeah.
As far as the music scene in High Point goes, though, I know you and I did speak a little bit earlier about, you said you were cynical about High Point, and I've been cynical about High Point's music scene for years. But somewhere in the last 20 years, I decided cynicism does not pay the bills.
You got that right.
Yeah.
So in order to, I do have my own solo shows, which I get to play my Fish and Sublime and the Grateful Dead, whatever I want. And I've almost branded my own sense of irreverency for that project. Yeah. And I even play the High Point Country Club under that solo moniker, and they allow me to do it playing Fish, which is awesome. I don't understand it, but I'm not going to question it. But otherwise, around here, I've had to start playing whatever will get me paid. Even if someone asked me to play like a Brazilian bar mitzvah, if it existed, I would find a way to say, yes, I know how to do that.
Tim plays yoga too.
Yeah, I do. I play like instrumental improv to yoga classes. So while the yoga teacher's teaching, I just quietly play, which is a great experiment in music. So when the teacher is explaining, I get quiet. And when the teacher doesn't speak anymore, I get a little bit louder. So I kind of try to go with the flow of the teacher as if she was like a spoken word performer.
How did you get that gig?
One of my students, her name was Caitlin Overby. She opened up a yoga studio.
Shout out to Caitlin.
Yep, and Jen Newton, another person. They both own yoga studios here in High Point. I taught her a couple of her daughters as well. And she had the idea of doing live music on the solstice, summer solstice and winter solstice. So we kind of made it into a thing. And then some of the breweries do Sunday or Saturday morning yoga. And I started doing live yoga with some of them that way as well.
That's
Kelly Yoakley was the first one, I think, who actually got me started. Another local High Point yoga instructor. How I ended up, like mostly teaching is how I got to know everybody, though.
I'm glad to hear you talk about this, about High Point, because unfortunately, I haven't been back to the East Coast very much in the last 4 years. And the town we're talking about, High Point, we all grew up, or I grew up in, Mike and Grant grew up in, but we really haven't discussed that much about what's going on in High Point. I guess we don't really talk about that much. I didn't realize that things were kind of like on the mend.
Well, like I said, Tim's holding it all together. I mean,
man, it sounds like you are, Tim.
I'm not kidding. He's played so much. It's like that's the only. He's the most known guy for music.
I'm in 5 bands at once sometimes, but none of them are super busy. They're one band plays every 6 weeks, another band plays every 5 weeks. So I've had to put myself into so many different projects in order to keep busy enough to pay the bills. But it's worth it. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Well, that's just kind of like what it is for a lot of people in this day and age. If you want to actually be a musician and you have to be working. You have to be hustling. You're doing a lot of different things. You're teaching, you're playing gigs, you're involved in a lot of projects. And that's the reality of where we are in the music industry right now. And I think it's a great thing to hear.
It's almost what I call like the middle class musician. We're obviously not the starving songwriter that doesn't have enough gigs and doesn't have a day job. But obviously, by no means am I playing the Coliseum anytime soon either. But now, since '95, well, there was a give or take period there, but since the late '90s, I've done nothing but music for my living. And I have to actually give Jerry Whitley and Kirby Smith props for that, because if they didn't provide me an opportunity to have a foundation and a place to call home, I never would have what I have today. They gave me a safe place to grow as a musician. And not a lot of people get that opportunity. And I'm grateful for that. Not only that, I had you, Brad Hollenbeck, and Dobbins. I had so many musicians around me that I could be like, Jamie, show me something cool. And Brad, show me something cool. And Jerry, show me something cool. So I had essentially all of you guys as my own teachers in my later life.
It was such a healthy environment looking back on that. And I've said this many times as well, that I'm eternally grateful for my time at Smith Whitley, because I can't imagine my life without it. That was an important foundation for me as a musician. There's no question. I learned so much more quickly than a lot of my peers because I had access to all this stuff. And, by the time I was just kind of like up there all the time playing guitars and we were all just, talking, that was so much fun. I remember that time very well with us all
I don't know if you can see if I do that, but you can still see, I still got the guitars on the walls. We don't have the retail shop open anymore, but I'm trying to maintain that level of fun up here.
Yeah, feel. Yeah,
I don't know if we talked about it, but this is what's left of Smith and Whitley music, because I, of course, inherited it when those guys retired.
Kirby touched on it. He said that the retail version or portion wasn't there anymore, but you were still teaching. And he mentioned John.
Yeah, Big John is been with me for a while teaching. He used to have Big John's music. He's currently in the hospital getting his some of his fluids situated, but he's going to be okay, it looks like. But he is 80 years old, and we're all thinking about him right now, hoping he gets better and gets back to teaching really soon.
Yeah, I don't really know Randy. I used to hang out with his son when we were really young. Todd
or Jason?
Todd. Yeah, Todd and I hung out when we were in grade school, but we lost touch. And but I'd been over John's house before. If he, but I know he's been really active in the music scene for a long time.
He's an open mic regular as well. He's always there on Thursdays playing when he can.
He's 80 and he's still just doing his thing. I love that.
He does, man. He does all the time. He's on a walker too, and he gets in there, and gets on the chair, and he plays guitar, and he sings, and everything. It's great, man.
That's awesome.
Man.
Yep. All I can do is hope that when we get to be that age, I can still get myself up on that chair and play guitar a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, music is such a powerful force and just such a great medicine and feeds the soul, and I think it's a testament to, of course, you want to try to pay the bills and make some money, but I think that music is just such we've talked a little bit about this in the past, it's like, it amazes me the people who are indifferent about music, they just don't hear that magic that we hear.
I make jokes about it, and I'm sorry. Yeah. So I make jokes about it. Perhaps I shouldn't, but I have some students that from time to time, and it's part of what I think has kept me teaching, by the way. But I'll ask them on their first lesson, so what do you like? What do you listen to? Who's your favorite artist? And I often get, I don't know. And I say, well, do you listen to music? And they'll sometimes say, no, well, not really. They just hear it on YouTube or in the background. So and that's when you kind of know that they're indifferent. So instead of just turning a cold shoulder to them and dismissing them as a non-starter, I'm like, well, what am I going to do to get that kid to love music?
Yeah.
So I consider that a challenge for myself. I'm like, all right, well, he's indifferent now, but you give me a month and he will not be. So I take it really seriously. And I'll pull up any kind of video you can imagine. If I see that one band or song catches their interest, then I'll try and take them down that direction. Or if they like some modern pop, I introduce them to the Beatles. I've showed them Beatlemania when all the fans were trying to jump the chain link fences and to get to the band. And sometimes that will enthrall them just as much as the music will, is the drama around it. Mm-hmm. And anything I can do to get them to care about a band or an artist or an instrument, I go for it, man.
I would say that I can say this with a pretty much sureness that amongst all the teachers that I have dealt with and kind of known, I would say that you're as much of a natural teacher as anybody that I can think of.
Oh, thanks, man.
And I mean that because, I know that, it's clear that you've always had the passion, for trying to really instill that excitement in a person. And I think that's at least as important as anything else, try to get them motivated and
absolutely
try to have them understand what this is all about.
Yeah. And you wouldn't, if you suck at teaching, you wouldn't have 4,000 students. So,
I'm beyond grateful that I'm still able to do this. And I made it through COVID, I was able to keep my people. I don't know. I get asked why or how it keeps going, and I just don't give up. That's all there is to it. And that's just to stay on subject of what you guys asked me to be on the show for. If I had to give advice to anyone that listens or watches this, to be a musician, don't give up. When you first start, it's not easy. Only 1 out of every 1,000 guitar players picks it up and has an easy time of it. Most of us have to struggle, whether it's guitar or bass. I don't care what instrument it is, but it's going to be hard for a minute, but it is worth it. The gratification you feel from not only entertaining an audience, but just accomplishing your whole first song, or the first time you put on your favorite Metallica record and were able to play through Master of Puppets on your own. That sense of reward for yourself as a person is unmatched. I don't think, anyways.
No, and it's different for everybody. You know, I mean, some
Yeah.
people want to be, that's enough for them to learn a song or write a song, whatever it is, you know, whatever your goals are. I think it's important for you to ask yourself, what do I want to do? You know, what do I want to do as a band person? You know,
Yep.
and when you have members come into a band, it's like, what are your goals? You just interested in playing on the weekends, or do you want to write music? I mean, there's a lot of things that you should ask somebody. It's like, what do you want to do?
Are you going to try for a democracy, or are you going to have one leader in the band? That's really important to establish in the beginning. Because
boy, that's tough in a band. That is really tough to have a democracy.
It's tough in any
band.
You think about it.
It's tough, you know.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I don't even want to get into that. So when you are promoting bands, I see a lot of stuff in the social. Let's talk about social media. Yeah, that is a crucial part of what it is these days. You have to use every possible method you can, and social media is really big, wouldn't you say?
It is. It's in the same breath, though, that it's really big, it's almost so big now where the second you see the word sponsored or any kind of paid advertising, most of us will skip over that stuff without really looking. We want to see those viral videos. We want to see the cute kittens or the puppies, whatever it may be. But if we see some unknown random commercial, we're going to skip it. So
I've got to interrupt you for a second.
Sure.
You see, I have premium YouTube. I don't even have this experience. I don't know what that's like. I've had premium.
I don't consider YouTube is social media to a point, but YouTube's almost still more of just a viewing format. It's not as much interaction.
You have commercials on Facebook?
Yeah, it has ads as you scroll. Yeah, you'll see an ad scroll right by your face. Oh yeah, Instagram, they all have them.
It's all ads. It's 90%.
Yeah,
ads.
when you're watching reels on Facebook, every third or fourth reel will be a commercial for something.
Yeah,
I am obtuse. I just don't pay attention to any of that stuff, or either I'm on it so infrequent. I don't really go on it unless I'm trying to communicate with somebody. It's not my jam.
You have to have a good social media presence, and in my opinion, the trick to that is to not overdo it. You don't want to over inundate the community with a post every 10 minutes. I'm saying one a day max. Even then, I consider one every 2 days to be more favorable, because if your posts are meaningful and less often, people are more likely to want to read what you have to say. But if you're one of those people that says, I woke up this morning and post that on Facebook, I ate food and post that on Facebook, then people are going to skip by what you have to say all the time.
Right.
Be to the point and brief is my opinion. But more than anything, I think going back to how it was in the 80s and the 90s, I think it's more important to go to other people's shows, to support the community around you, to meet the musicians in the other bands, and bring yourself a little pocket full of quarter-size flyers and do it the old-fashioned way.
Man,
shake a hand and hand somebody a flyer, because I'm going to remember someone who introduced me and handed me a flyer more than I'm going to remember something I may or may not have paid attention to on the internet. I think you have to have both. This modern age demands social media. But I think too many people surrender the value of a face-to-face encounter with a musician.
Do you think that the younger bands, the younger generation, that is something that they understand? I mean, I'm truly asking out of ignorance. I truly don't know. I mean,
I will say I'm partially ignorant as well. There's a whole community in that under 25 group where I see it, but I still don't understand it all the way. They have their own methodology. Their social media that they use that we don't even know what it is yet. As people over 40 or over 50, we're still behind the times. Facebook is for old people now to them.
Right.
Instagram's even for old people. I mean, they have their own whole up and coming thing. But like I said, they're the ones selling cassettes. They're selling vinyl. They're going back to selling merch like it's 1967.
I love that.
Keychains, T-shirts, whatever it may be, and they're making them at home. They're buying 3D printers, making their own keychains. There's a local band called Fifth Floor. Man, these kids are awesome. They make their own T-shirts. They learned how to screen print themselves. They bought 3D printers to make their own keychains. They're making their own stickers. It's awesome, dude. They're hustling.
3D printer,
and it's a really good band too. I know them.
Oh,
or cool, I know of them. Yeah,
I love that idea. I mean, do it yourself, man. The DIY, man. That is the best way, really. You know, and honestly, the way it was years and years ago was that record companies would always go to a band that had already started their own thing. And if they thought, well, people are coming to come out and supporting them now, yeah, we can get behind them. But that's what you want to do if you really want to try to go to the next level, you know?
Yep. Brand
So
yourself and be true to your brand, I think is important. But be honest about it too. People can smell fake this day like you wouldn't believe. And they just miss it. I think you really have to be genuine and love what you're doing.
I think so as well. You know,
Tim,
in the same breath, if Britney Spears offered me $6,000 a month to play for her shows, I would absolutely do it.
Of course, that's what
Hence making a
Betancourt
living.
does with Rihanna.
Yep, exactly. I don't care who's paying me to play. If I'm getting paid, I'm playing it.
Yeah. Real. Tim, how many of your students have started their own bands?
At this point, quite a few. My most successful one is Joseph Terrell's in this band called Mipso.
Yeah.
And they're doing really well. And I taught him for about 10 years. And they're touring internationally at this point. They're playing the big theaters. They're doing really, really well. But aside from that, I would say 25% of my students are in bands at some point or another. And 10% probably stay in bands their whole lives. Some of which are my band. Several of my band members are students at one point.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was just thinking, we were talking about music and bands having a following already, and then record companies paying attention. I mean, that's way back in the day where, there were almost every night of the week, there were bands playing in almost every city. And, they had A&R guys and talent scouts traveling the country, seeing all these bands they've heard about that might have a following, I mean, that's not the way it works anymore, but they'll check your video out on YouTube possibly. But
if you're lucky, if you hit their algorithm,
it's right. So much stuff's out there. But I was just curious how many kids you've taught.
That's a great question. It's cool though. It's really fun to watch them. I love to go see my students' bands play. That's when I really have that moment of like, that's my happiest. Those are my happiest moments in my life when I get to watch them play.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's very cool, man. I know Kirby goes to see, the people that, he's been involved with all these years,
Yeah. The Smiths are well represented at open mic night.
Yeah, for sure. So would you say that, when you are involved with all these bands that you have, a pretty active audience? I mean, there's a lot of you're maintaining the same amount of people, growing. You feel like it's.
I don't think about it that way very often. Maintaining would be my first instinct. That's my first answer would be maintaining a pretty steady audience.
Yeah.
It doesn't diminish, which is good. But like anything else, I don't care if it's High Point, Greensboro, Winston, Chicago, Charlotte, LA. You can have the best band at the best venue, but on any given night, it can be empty for some reason. High Point has always been a little fickle with attendance, but it's gotten a lot better in the last 10 years, a lot better. There's a lot more people in the downtown area, which when we were younger in the 90s, there wasn't even a downtown area to think of with music.
Yeah. Now, what is considered down?
There's people. Oh, I'm sorry.
What is considered downtown?
What I consider the downtown area, there's a name for it. They call it the social district. And you can actually have open alcohol containers that you can carry from bar to bar as long as it's in an appropriate cup. Kind of like Vegas. But it's.
I wish I'd known that when I was down there.
It starts at the corner of Church and Main, basically.
Yeah.
Is where the social district starts. You make a right on Church Street, and that's where you have Plank Street Tavern, where I host the open mic night. You've got the Stock and Grain. There's a new place. It's one of those bar arcade hybrid places there. I forgot the name of it, but it just opened recently.
This is headed south. This is headed south toward Archdale.
And then, of course, the stadium is right there. And then you have all the restaurants down there as well.
That's the social district.
Yeah, and then Paddle South and Nomad Wide Works are also a part of that.
Yeah, over on Elm Street. Yeah.
This is all news to me. I had not heard anything.
They're all within a few blocks of one another. They're trying to to put everything entertainment bar semi in the same, like if you go to Durham or something and you walk down certain, or Noda and Charlotte, where there's it's a bunch of bars and a bunch of live performance places and restaurants and stuff like that. It's kind of that. It's not even, they call it downtown, but it's technically a little north of downtown. What used to be considered the downtown, where all the furniture showrooms are.
Right. Wow. Well, that's so cool to hear.
It's, at least they're trying something. I mean, it's
what's the name of that other place, Grant? Congdon Yards. That's another spot down there. Yeah. That's another really interesting meeting place down there. It's not much of a music spot, but it's still a social spot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I never thought High Point would have it. And I used to make fun of it and be super cynical about it. But I decided I'm going to embrace it. And instead of complaining about it, I'm going to become part of it and try to make it as awesome as I can in the image that I'd like to see it be.
Yeah, that's the best way.
That's great, Tim. Yeah.
And I used to definitely hide from it and complain. I used to consider that artistic integrity. I'm going to brood in the corner like a good artist.
Right.
Please, man, I have my slice of bread. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's really
I'm not going to brood in the corner
that
anymore.
Yeah.
Right. Well, to be open to try to be involved with something and try to help it grow. I mean, that's extremely healthy.
And it's music, man. I mean, that's the one thing that I don't care what politic thing happens in your face or religion, whatever it may be. If we don't talk about that, we can all find a home in music. That's
right on.
A universal situation. Like, we need to get back to that, like it was in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and away from all the divisiveness we have these days.
Man, I'm telling you, it is so different than it was,
And the arts
I miss that as well. Yeah,
I think the arts can still be that.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a powerful thing, and I don't know. I guess we could talk about that forever, our opinions on that. I won't do that, subject people to it, but yeah, I love the fact that the opportunity is there for music to try to bring people together, and if you're open to it, it will.
Yeah, I keep checking interested in Tim's open mic invite. Something. One day I don't even have calluses right now, so I can't even do anything.
I can't wait.
One day I'm gonna get down there.
I'm not pushy about it because I know if I bug people, they'll be less likely to come. But I always invite all my friends and hope they do show up.
One of these days.
Hey, Brad Collins has been a couple times, believe it or not.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he's poked his head in recently a couple times.
Yeah,
I spoke with him a couple nights ago.
Playing at Kusa.
That's when I first learned that my artistic integrity was questionable. Like I played Skinner for the public for the first time in a band with Brad, and I went, okay, I guess I'm willing to do stuff for money. I'm not a big Leonard Skinner fan, but
see, I am in the minority. I listened to Leonard Skinner and I liked them. I am not I totally respect other people's opinions, but there's things about them that I truly, truly like. It's got nothing to do with I don't think I'd be interested in going seeing the current incarnation of the band, but the classic stuff, to me, that's good music. I don't have anything
my
negative to say
biases
about
are. I could probably, in a calm way, my biases with Skinner are political.
Oh yeah,
that's the nice way for me to say that.
I take that completely out of the equation. For me, it's all about music, and I don't pay attention to lyrics.
Jamie don't even listen to lyrics, so
I don't listen to lyrics. It's just like they might as well be humming. Because I'm listening to Alan Collins.
Sometimes I wish I still didn't listen to lyrics. Well, the Rolling Stones really made me wish I didn't listen to lyrics. I'm like, oh. He said, what in Brown Sugar?
We can't play that anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we can play that no more, Keith.
Well,
let what bleed, Nick? Let what bleed?
Yeah.
It is interesting to me how I've only since we've been doing this podcast really become acutely aware of how my taste has influenced my listening habits. I never really thought about it too much. And then with us discussing it, it's just like you can't help but for me to understand. It's like, geez, you don't like this because you don't really care for the lyrics, and yet I'm not listening to the lyrics and I'm listening for something else, and I can appreciate it or like it a lot more than you do. And I didn't understand that before, but now I think I understand. So that's been an eye-opening experience for me. I never would have even thought about it. I was like, well, why don't you like that? I don't like it. Okay. I never really gave
and that's
it much
really
thought.
Good enough.
Well, it is,
to be honest,
but
that's better.
I want to understand why. It's like, why are you not hearing that I'm hearing, and vice versa?
No,
I mean, we all hear,
for example,
differently.
And I know this is always my biggest disagreement with musicians. My least favorite band on the planet is Journey. I hate them, absolutely hate them. But it has nothing to do with their talent. I know Steve Perry is an amazing singer. I know every one of those guys can play. I know the songs are well composed. Yeah. But there's just something about Journey that got into my head, and it's, I'm sure, some psychological bias that I can't stand them.
Interesting.
And I know that I'm in a minority, but still know they're awesome. But in the same breath, I hate them.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a huge Neil Schon fan. He's one of my biggest guitar influences. He's a fantastic guitar player. And he's the key reason that I'm a fan, but I do like many other songs. And Steve Smith, the drummer, Grant and Mike are drummers. He's one of the greatest drummers of the last 50 years, I'd say. He's one of the best. But
when left to my own devices.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of my music lies on the outside of the top 40 anyways. I play whatever gets me paid, but when I'm listening, it's usually on the outskirts of what's popular.
Tim, can you teach me Don't Stop Believing?
Somehow or another, I don't ever get asked to teach Journey anymore. It's the weirdest thing. We could have a whole separate podcast. We could have a whole separate podcast about what I get asked to teach.
Wait till they see this episode.
Yeah. All these years, man. Back in Black still gets requested.
That's a great song.
I don't care if they're 10 or 16 or 18 or 22. I get asked for Back in Black. People still want to learn Green Day all the time. Green Day has done something to keep younger generations entrenched. I don't know what they've done, but people come in and request not just Green Day, but old Green Day. I'm like, how does this 12-year-old kid so familiar with Dookie and all these Green Day records from the 90s? But they are, and it's great.
I think I know why. I think it's just because when you've got Billy Armstrong knows how to put together a song with vocal melody and the hooks and the songs that people can actually play. They're not complicated.
Yeah, they're
right.
They can actually play them, and then they can have somebody sing, or they can sing, and they can sound like that.
It's 3 or 4 chords, and it's the melody.
Right. That's what he's great at. He's playing basic stuff, but he's all these vocal melodies around it. He understands songs.
I mean, a million musicians can play 4 chords. It's just they can't find a melody to go with those 4 chords, whereas a handful of great songwriters can take 2 chords and find that melody like that. And I mean, look at every Nirvana song. It's so simple.
Oh yeah.
And it's the melody,
When you think about people who are beginning to play, they want to be able to choose a band or a song that they can actually play.
Yep.
They don't want to get I'm going to mention Mahavishnu or Return to Forever.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I can't do that. So, they listen to something. I mean, there's only a handful of people that are attracted to that. I say this over and over and over. If you want to appeal to musicians, you're going to be poor. You need to appeal to a 9-year-old
student. Be like, have you heard of Dream Theater?
Right.
No.
I mean, it's inspiring to a lot of people, but your everyday person wants something that they actually can play. And that's why Nirvana and Green Day, and that's not a diss. That's a great thing.
Tom Petty still hangs in there. Right. They still want to know it.
Yep. Absolutely. A great
song.
I love those
bands. I don't mind them. And trust me, the Journey thing, I try really hard not to take my biases and pass them along. So unless directly asked, I will never bring up something I don't like to a student.
Well, now I feel compelled to make you like Journey. I think I've got a quest.
The way that they've tried
I've got to make you understand.
Yeah, the way they've tried before is by taking me to pre-80s Journey.
No,
and I did find more appreciation to the early Journey. It's like I didn't like the keyboardy poppy parts of Journey. I don't think as much.
Oh, really?
My mind is open though, Jamie. If you have a listening suggestion or two, I will give it a shot.
Well, I think it all depends on how you hear things. Like I said, Neil Schon is such a melodic player. His stuff was so lyrical. He's one of the great players. Whether you like the band or not, you take him just take him by himself. He is a phenomenal guitar player, but it's not because he can play fast. It's because he came up with these amazing melodies within the solos that were songs within songs. There's only a handful of guys that can do that. there's only a few guys that are able to do what he does or what he did. And I can probably give you 10 examples of solos where he just knows how to do that. And that's rare. That attracted me immediately, but we don't hear things the same way. Somebody might just hear it as notes. They don't hear that it's something unique. I totally dialed in when I was a kid. I thought, that's different. He's not like the rest of these other guys. There's definitely something special about him, but then you just got the songs. I mean, you like the songs or you don't, but I always
like his
them.
playing on the HSAS record. Have you heard that? The Hagar Sean record?
Yeah,
I like that album a lot.
That's not typical Neil Sean. If that's what you like about him, I understand you don't hear the way I hear, because that's not really him. That's not really him at his best. His best is After the Fall off of Frontiers. That is like it's just so melodic, and he just has this ability to just zero in on the perfect note. It's
I'd have
just
to hear
uncanny.
it. I don't know if I know that one. I'm not sure I'm familiar with that song.
Like I said, I'm on a quest. I'll have to share my thoughts with you.
Just don't listen to any Live Journey if you want to.
Yeah, he overplays live.
Neil Sean's playing live.
He's trying to
impress
younger
people.
generation.
Stop it. Just play the damn solo and embellish a little.
I agree 100%.
We don't need to see sweet picking and all this kind of crap in these Journey solos that weren't there.
Yeah, he overplays completely in the last several years. But
Tim Gomez is my favorite player now.
He's a phenomenal musician. Phenomenal musician. Is there anything else you would like to promote about what you're currently doing? Or
really, the most important thing is to come on out to Plank Street for open mic on Thursday, especially if you're a beginner and you're afraid to get in front of people for the first time. We have a really welcoming
live establishment for that. For our listeners not in the area,
anywhere in the country.
Yeah, just
get out and play in front of people. Yep, and find a good open mic night where you have a really nurturing group of people. Like, we have a lot of people up there at all different levels, and they embrace the advanced people will embrace the beginners, and it's no one judges. If you make a mistake, no one's going to warn you about it or tell you about it. We just clap and move on to the next song. It's great. It's a great place to get started.
That sounds healthy.
It's scary, but it's after you do it, you realize, why was I so scared?
Yep. And there's a bunch of people that'll play with you up there. If you don't want to play by yourself, I mean, I join my students all the time and play their first songs with them if they want me to.
That's cool, man.
Always an option.
Yeah.
Well, I've enjoyed talking to you, man. It's really great to have your perspective on things. And,
you guys too, man. I really appreciate all three of you having me.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And we always say like and subscribe. And if you guys have any suggestions for us to add to the show, we surely appreciate your input. And we thank you so much. See you guys next week.
Thanks for coming by.
See you.
Thank you, man.
You will.
See you guys soon, man.
Take care, buddy.
You too, guys. Talk to you soon.
All right, man.
All righty.
Bye.